Sunday morning, and it is a nice day across much of the eastern states, with a few minor exceptions along the way from New England down to Florida. We've got a little tropical disturbance along the South Texas coast, and we have a rather unsettled weather picture coming up for the week ahead. We'll have that and so much more on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Your yard might be a mess after this summer with your lawn burned away. You might need some mulch to make it look great for the fall. And of course, we're still waiting to see if hurricane season's going to throw us a curveball. So head over to Omni, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, serving the entire New York, New Jersey tri-state area with the best prices around. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
59 here this morning with deliciously low dew points. I saw somebody had Barry Gold was it? I think it was Barry Goldberg that said that up near where he is in Caldwell, he had a dew point yesterday. At one point, got down to 42.
Wow.
Just a really nice air mass that's played according to what was being advertised. It seemed like forever last week that it was going to get here, but it finally did.
Yeah, I mean, considering that early last week, my dew point here was 75.
Oh,
And I don't know exactly how low it got, but I can tell you that yesterday morning, temperature got to 57 degrees, and all the windows are open. Nature's air conditioning system is doing its thing, and this is the way I know it's not going to be this way all through the rest of the summer, but I'm loving every minute of it while it is here.
yes, and good morning to everybody on the chat board on this Sunday morning. Hard to get people interested in weather when it's nice on a weekend like this, and we had have an early super chat hit from Michael McGuire. Thank you very much, Michael, for hitting super chat this morning, pointing out that little sneaky severe weather event is possible tomorrow, where he is in the woods of the North Carolina Piedmont, and I would kind of agree with that. I don't know if how much you looked at the weather maps over the last couple of days, but it's been a while at the very least to see some of the model volatility that was going on from run to run, especially along the East Coast, where we had several runs and some of them consecutive, showing what looked like was going to be a nice wrapped up tight little coastal storm developing off the Virginia coast and heading up into southern New England. And then you get a couple of runs of that, and then you would get a couple of runs where there is no, well, there is a low, but it's very weak, and the upper low is totally different, structured differently than what it was on the previous run. I'm kind of been leaning against the idea that there's going to be some sort of well-developed low coming up, and instead we'll be dealing with this trough and the chance that there could be some showery rains around over the next few days. And unfortunately, what looked like at one point last week that maybe we'd get into a decent widespread rainfall for the very dry Northeast and parts of the northern Mid-Atlantic states, that widespread rainfall idea is perhaps not to be.
Yeah, and it looks like if there is any kind of a wound-up system off the Mid-Atlantic coast, it will do what all wound-up systems would do to continue the protracted spell of dry weather here, and that is to wind up and spend all of its energy and moisture out over the ocean, a fish storm. And meanwhile, we here in the Northeast look longingly at that offshore system. And, it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day, about how over the years, whenever a big rain event was predicted, and then it did not happen, let's say the forecast from 48 hours ago was suggesting, oh, we could see 1 to 2 inches of rain, flash flooding, and all kinds of that. And it turns out that we get only a fraction of that. And in the aftermath, you don't hear any complaints whatsoever. Nobody gets all upset. Nobody registers any complaint. Nobody said, well, those guys got it wrong again. But that's summertime. Do the same thing with a potential big snow event. Call for maybe 1 or 2 feet of snow, and you only get a few inches. Then you hear it from all different directions. Well, they blew it again with the, you know. But it doesn't seem to work in the same manner for rainstorms as it does with snowstorms. So that's the way it is.
Or you forecast 2 to 4 inches of snow, and you get 2 to 4 inches of snow, and you have people will complain, calling it a bust. That's the part I've never understood. If you forecast that something is going to be a certain thing, and it turns out to be a certain thing, that certain thing, how is it? How is that a bust? I don't that I'll never understand the logic behind. I sort of get where they're going with it because, there are folks that seem to think that every time there's even a mention of so much as a flurry that it really means a foot. So if they get anything less, it's just completely unacceptable. But that's always been bothersome to me. It's not a bust. If you're forecasting a certain amount and you get that certain amount, or maybe it's a little under, or maybe it's a little over, it's close enough. I don't quite get that. Also, I would argue that when you get into a wet pattern, you get where you could forecast 1 to 2 inches of rain, the starting time and ending time 2 or 3 days in advance, and it happens, on a regular basis. It doesn't vary. But when it comes to snow, even when you get into a snowy pattern, you never seem to be in a situation where you're going to be forecasting, something 2 or 3 days in advance and just nail it 2 or 3 days in advance and do it over and over again.
Right, right. Well, anyway, you're right in terms of what's coming our way in the next few days. I think any hope that we're going to see anything substantial come out of this, it looks like it's slowly slipping out of our fingers. It does not look like right now that we need to be concerned about anything particularly heavy. And that's sad because we're now in parts of the Northeast, especially in parts of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. There is most definitely, after all of this dry weather, severe drought.
Yeah.
And we're not, and by the way, in the immediate tri-state area where I live in Putnam County is among those places that is not yet deemed severe, but still drier and more tilting toward severe drought than any other part of the northeastern United States. So, and this area of drought seems to be spreading slowly but surely westward and southward. So if this keeps up, Joe, into September and October, by the time we get to October, we may be seeing much of the Northeast in severe drought unless we see a change in the overall pattern.
Well, we can go back to a time, Leon of Lindenhurst, also known as Leon Probitsky, when he's on the chat board, which I don't see him on today, reminded me of this. And yesterday, Joe, was the 8th anniversary, and I remember this so clearly, and I brought the surface map up for it. The 8th anniversary of one of the heaviest rainfalls I think I've ever seen in a short period of time. I think Islip set the 24-hour rainfall record for the state that day. And I believe that still stands. 13 inches of rain falling in about 4 hours' time. I have never, never seen rain come down as hard, even here where I am in northeast Georgia. I have never seen rain come down as hard as I did on that morning. I mean, it was like being under a waterfall. I mean, that's how it looked from the, and when I remember first hearing, is this all coming out of my gutter? And I looked and I couldn't see out my window because it was raining so hard. The flooding was incredible. With this system or complex system. And this is what it actually looked like at 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning, because most of the rain started out at around 3 or 4 a.m., at least where I was, and lasted till about 9 or 10 in the morning, as I recall. But you had an approaching cold front running through the Great Lakes, and of course behind it you had temperatures in the 40s with dew points down in the low 40s. But there was also another wave with a warm front. There was a low in northeastern Ohio with a warm front that extended across western PA and then ran down near southern New Jersey. And more importantly, which I don't have to show, is the upper air feature associated with this. There was really is an absolute powerhouse, small little shortwave that was driving this whole thing, this upper trough, and the skies just literally opened up. And by the way, on the other side of that warm front, on the southern side, you had dew points in the mid 70s. So there's all this tropical air that was just shooting northward, and an onshore flow that fed into all of this. And just go to the next, I'll go to the next map, the 9Z, and we can take a look at how that played out. For some reason,
By the way,
the map's not changing. Oh, there it goes.
Renata just came down and showed me the very latest drought severity, and where we are here in Putnam County, we are now in severe drought. There's a little stripe which extends from, I think, northwestern Connecticut across lower sections of Dutchess County and right on into Putnam County, where is I ought to bring it up. I ought to bring the
pull up the drought map.
yeah, I know. I'll bring it up right now. So we share it. Executive producer.
She's producing. She's producing on the fly, Joe. She's yelling. She needs an IFB for you, so she could yell in your ear. Exactly. Put the map up. Put the map up.
Yeah, I will get that. But yeah, I remember that well. Bill, I got that in my memories, my Facebook memories yesterday or the day before about this tremendous amount of rain. And one of the people who made comments about this was Bill Corbell, our old friend from WOR Radio and also from News 12. And he said that in over 40 years, now he had the same length of or tenure of time in front of the camera and behind the camera or whatever in terms of weathercasting as we have, Joe. He said over 40 years, I've never seen it rain as hard and as fast and as torrentially as what he saw that day when, again, Islip picked up over 13 inches of rain.
Oh, yeah.
In just a very short time.
I mean, roads were completely underwater. Some of them were even on Long Island were washed away. I pulled up the surface map. I mean, this is really sort of an odd surface because you've got, you have that front analyzed now moving into western PA with all those gorgeous dew points behind it. There was another low with another cold front that was analyzed in central PA. And then there's a closed low, a closed surface low in central New Jersey, just inland of the coast that developed, 1,008 low. And again, this is the upper trough with this. And I remember seeing it from a day or two before on the models thinking, boy, this really does look like it could be quite the powerhouse. And you see how it evolved here on the surface map. Finally, by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the first front was moving. And notice, by the way, how quickly that first front just moved from western Pennsylvania, basically in less than 6 or 7 hours time. Just moved from western PA to off the New Jersey coast, and then that second front followed with, as we were waiting for gorgeous dew points to come back. At that time. But you could go ahead if you want to share the drought map now. You can go ahead and do it.
I'm going to try right now. Hang on. Oh, come on, Joe. I'm just no what? Oh, I see what happened. you ended up being small. That's why I couldn't get there. Now. I will share. This is solely for New York State. And you can see that on this map of New York State that I'd say about half of the state is in good shape. I mean, there's no categories of drought or dry weather. The yellows are indicative of abnormally dry. That's the other half of the state. Well, actually, maybe not half. I'll say about 40% of the state doesn't have much to worry about in terms of drought at the moment. But the other 60% has in yellow either abnormally dry conditions. Then we have, and we pointed this out last week, across Long Island, divided by 495, the Long Island Expressway, north of 495, it's abnormally dry. South of 495, they're into moderate drought. And you look at the lower Hudson Valley, and indeed a good part of it is in moderate drought. But then right here, take a look right here in lower Dutchess County and across a good hunk of Putnam County, which is where I am, they are at the next level, severe drought. And you continue this any further, maybe another week or two, it might very well be that we'll see red in some places, which would indicate extreme drought. So we are at least here in my neck of the woods, and I'll tell you, looking at my front and back lawns, big patches of brown. Yeah, severe drought is absolutely a good category for that. And if we back up a little ways and just show the Northeast, well, speaking of extreme drought, that is now the situation. That is now the story in, for example, Massachusetts. Look at this now, including the Boston area, Massachusetts into extreme drought, followed by again into central sections of Massachusetts, severe drought, and you got to go all the way into western Massachusetts to get just simply abnormally dry. And overall, in the northeastern part of the country, you could see that, as I said, the further east you go, the more the drought becomes more and more significant, and it seems to be spreading westward. And again, we keep this up for another few more weeks, another month or two, and you're going to see a lot of red on this northeast map. And we were hoping that we would get a significant rainfall with this system coming up the next few days, but now it's looking more and more like a lot of that much needed rainfall is going to stay pretty well out of the picture for much of the Northeast. Sorry.
Punch up the Mid-Atlantic states if you can. In the meantime, David Schwartz asks, and thank you for the super chat hit, David. It was always appreciated. With all these drought conditions going on in the New York City area, what are the reservoirs like? I don't know that I mean, the reservoirs really get most of their water from the snow melt. And not so much from what happens in the summertime, but I'm not 100% sure what the state of the reservoirs are. I don't know if you know, Joe.
No, I don't.
Well,
But
we'll have to find that out.
Can you see now that what I have on the map there
Yes.
with the drought? They don't have mid-Atlantic, they have southeast, but the upper part, I would presume, holds part of what we would refer to as the mid-Atlantic. And it doesn't really look all that bad from the Mid-Atlantic on south in terms of lack of any rainfall.
Patchy areas here and there. You see it eastern north. Looks like the eastern half of North Carolina, in that yellow area, but nobody's in the red.
And I just looked here at the reservoir. How full are the New York reservoirs? New York City's water supply system. Normal is 87.8% of capacity. That's normal for this time of the year. And right now, the current capacity level is below normal, but it's not terribly below normal, 79.2%, as we're in now the midsummer.
All right. Well, you know what? One solid. Actually, if we could have gotten the rainfall that was being generated by some of the models, the middle part of last week for this coming week, that would have been helpful. And perhaps it may take a tropical storm to do it, but we don't see anything like that happening anytime soon. So we'll just have to sit back and wait to see how the pattern evolves in the next couple of weeks. It can't be dry forever.
Yeah, you and I go back to the mid '60s. There was a really bad drought situation in the New York tri-state area back around 1965, 66. And I'll tell you how bad it was. They were actually taking water from the Hudson River and cleaning it up or converting it.
And that in those days, the Hudson River was a cesspool.
Yes. In fact, the nickname for that was if somebody had handed you a glass of water and said, "This is Hudson River water," the nickname for that was the Hudson cocktail. So supposedly it was safe to drink. I don't know, but just the knowledge of knowing it was Hudson River water, I would have said. And we didn't have in those days. There were very few places that were selling bottled water.
Oh,
You
nope.
tell you could go out and
You
you
could,
get
yeah. You could still
get
get like
Poland
maybe
spring water.
the gallon jugs, but like the little bottles like today, no, that didn't even exist.
Exactly,
You know.
exactly.
Anyway, uh, it is amazing, by the way, how much cleaner the rivers in New York State, because New York State used to be a heavy industrial state, especially in upstate New York, where they had a lot of tanneries and leather factories and among other things, and they just dumped stuff wholesale into the rivers that fed into the Hudson, and then the Hudson, New York had a lot of industry around it too. The Hudson was a cesspool, and now of course the Hudson's clean. There's fish, there's dolphin in it. I mean, it's really crazy. It's amazing, and it didn't take over a span of maybe 20 years it took to finally clean it up. All right. As far as the tropics are concerned, I have the surface map up, but I'm going to leave it up there because there is, and this happens sometimes especially along the Texas coast. It seems that uh, they seem to have this happen more often than not, where you get these systems that sort of park themselves just offshore and then suddenly try to develop at the last minute. And if you take a look at the surface map here from this morning, there actually is a low that is north of Corpus Christi that's just come on shore. And you look at the wind barbs on this, you can see that there are south-southwest winds on the southeast side of the low. 20 knots or higher. There's a southeast wind just to the northeast of the low, and there's northwest winds on land on the west side of the low. So there is a circulation here that did develop, a low-level circulation that did develop, but it formed too close to land, I guess. And we saw a case a couple of years ago, and in fact, I think I forgot the name of the storm. I want to say it was either an ice storm, Imelda maybe, I think, that formed along the northeast coast of Texas, and actually the low center was actually just inland of the coast, but it had a circulation offshore, and all of a sudden there were 60 to 70 60 mile an hour winds, 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts with it along the immediate coast after the low center had moved inland. So and on top of that, they had ridiculous amounts of rainfall that occurred in parts of southeast Texas. So then they wound up retiring the name because of that. But this is what we have this morning, and that low does look inland. And if we look on the radar, if you look at the signature on the radar loop, it's fairly clear that there is a bit of a low-level circulation that has moved inland, and a concentration of heavy downpours now on the coast of southeast Texas, where they're going to get some heavy rains. I did get a kick out of the fact that I happened to have the TV on this morning when they went over to ABC News, and they made it sound like the entire state of Texas was getting flooded. Okay, and if you look, and it's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. If you look at the radar here, this radar shot, if you take a look, Texas, in case you don't know, is a big state geographically, a lot of miles, a lot of square miles, and it's a very small area here relative to the rest of the state that's actually getting this heavy rain. So if you're thinking that the whole state of Texas is getting flooding rains, it ain't. It looks like maybe less than 10% of that. If I'm just doing eyeballing it, less
And
than
I can assure you
less than
that
10.
I can assure you that the weather, at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is not all that bad this morning because my daughter is heading to Hawaii, and she flew from LaGuardia to Dallas yesterday, stayed over, and is now flying from Dallas to Honolulu. But you can rest assured,
Honolulu, land of
yeah,
Goshen.
and you could rest assured that if the weather was as bad as what ABC News was reporting earlier in terms of statewide conditions in Texas, I'm sure that her flight would have either been delayed or maybe even canceled. But she left pretty much on schedule, and she's off. So it's not as bad as what one would think down in the Lone Star State, except maybe right along the immediate Gulf Coast.
Right. Radar also, since I have it up, we do have the upper trough, the next upper trough. just going to make the radar a little bit smaller so I can get more of it into the screen, is producing some showers and downpours across Ohio and into northeastern Kentucky. There's actually some stuff aloft that's showing up with a little lead piece that kind of ran out ahead in all this dry air, and there's some precip aloft. None of this is reaching the ground out in the ocean, moving out. Well, obviously, if it's out in the ocean, it's not reaching the ground, Joe. Very, really smart. Those echoes are moving away. Dry in the southeast, just a beautiful day here. As I said, I got down to 59 this morning, and I think the last time I checked the thermometer, it was 71. Brasstown Ball, Joe, 4,800 feet up. When I was at 59, was at 54 this morning. Not too shabby. And, of course, that matches a lot of the lows that we saw in the Northeast, even 40s this morning in some places. But overall, the radar this morning is quiet. It's liable to get a little busier later on today. Not much going on severe weather-wise. Along the Gulf Coast, general thunderstorms. Up the Rockies with the continuing monsoon there. Marginal risk up in Montana and western North Dakota. Tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center is showing a marginal risk from western Virginia down into Georgia, and that's with that low that is dropping southeastward, dropping pretty far south for this time of year. Another small area of marginal risk indicated in parts of Nebraska and northeastern Colorado, and there's no tornado risk being indicated from this in anywhere across the U.S., less than 2%. And then on the next day, where we have a teeny tiny versus an itsy bitsy, a teeny tiny area of marginal risk in northeastern Arkansas and also into southeastern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma, southeastern Missouri. General thunderstorms up the Appalachians and up the coastal plain till about central New Jersey for Tuesday, and then no thunderstorms forecast from central New Jersey northeast into Maine, in coastal Maine. That doesn't mean it's not going to rain. It just means that it's not going to be convective in nature. General thunderstorms out pretty far to the south there into the Gulf states and down to Florida, but no severe weather is being indicated. And here's a satellite view this morning. You can see the loop showing that little disturbance that's moving off the coast of New Jersey and south of Long Island with just these clouds. Skies have partially cleared out behind it. It's a beautiful sunny day in much of upstate New York and New England, except for eastern Maine. And there's the energy around the Great Lakes. And you also see, you look at the satellite signature of what's along the Texas coast, Joe. If this were further offshore, this probably would become a tropical storm. Because it has that circular ball look to it, and reflecting that there is some sort of low-level circulation there, but thinking at the moment that it is the low center is inland. It's going to be you're not going to see too much development unless there's some sort of surprise where the winds suddenly start gusting like crazy offshore. But not seeing any signs of that, at least for the time being.
What's incredible to me is that if you look on the National Hurricane Center map, you can see that there's the yellow X where we were, pegging that disturbance off of southern Texas.
Yep, putting it up on the screen. It's on the screen now.
And then you look at the eastern Pacific, and looks like there's a tropical depression, NE, south and west of Baja California. And then you look at the central Pacific, and they have the notation tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 48 hours between 140 west and 180. Joe, this is about as quiet a tropical pattern, not just for the Atlantic and Caribbean, but also for the eastern and central Pacific that I could remember. I mean, we are in the middle of August now, and we've hardly seen anything. And as they used to say in those grade B westerns, it's quiet out there. Pause.
Yes.
Too quiet. And you kind of wonder what may be looming over the horizon as we get toward the end of August and on into September and October. And by then, things should be normally really revving up. We're in a La Nina pattern, for goodness sake. I mean, that seems to indicate usually an active pattern here in Atlantic waters, and it is anything but that. So I'm really scratching my head
I,
and saying, what's going on here?
I think because we're at mid-month here, we're at mid-August. I would have thought that something would have popped up by now somewhere. Um, Nothing. And I'm trying to load the loop here. The one thing that I'm noticing, now, first of all, the intertropical convergence zone, okay, it's not only weak, it is so far south. It just to give you an idea, all right, just to give you an idea of how far south this is, I'm going to draw, let's draw, I'm going to draw 10 degrees north, okay? That's 10
Right.
degrees north, all right? Now I'm going to draw 20 degrees north. These disturbances should be coming off the African coast and moving through those two lines that I just drew. Instead, that's 10 degrees north. I'm going to just sort of eyeball the equator. I mean, look at this. The wave action is so far south. Look at the clouds that are to the north of that. They're all moving north to south. I mean, the entire major development, the MDR, the ITCZ, whatever you want to call it, is uh, it's all wrong. It's totally all wrong in terms of what the upper air should look like. It looks like there's some kind of giant upper low that's sitting somewhere between the Cabo Verde Islands and the Canary Islands that's dominating the flow here to an extent. And you know that's closer to the coast where you see the circulation around the upper low. And then you've got these northerly winds in the upper atmosphere that are blowing these clouds from north to south, northeast to southwest. When you get into the tropical Atlantic, it's mind-boggling with the La Nina pattern. As you said, we should be seeing at least some activity going on, and it's just not happening. And I wonder whether it is going to be happening at all in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I would think something should try to form down there, but it's I can remember we went a stretch of years in the 70s where hardly anything came out of there.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering. I'm looking at a question posted on the chat board by Tom Contino. He says, Joe Rayo, do you suspect instead of many systems, we will get a, and then in capital letters, big one this year? Hope so. And I look at something like that and I
Hope
say to
not.
myself, Tom,
Hope not.
I mean, Tom, are you hoping that we'll get like a Category 5 storm out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or somewhere in the Caribbean that does not have any effect other than creating swells, sea swells at coastal locations? Does not have any direct effect on, let's say, the islands of the Caribbean or the mainland United States. Are you hoping in that direction? So I hope that that is the case. Tom, if you're saying hope so, and you're hoping that, let's say, some kind of a major hurricane is sweeping up the eastern seaboard and putting countless thousands of people out of home and bringing billions of dollars in damage, I don't understand what the reasoning for that would be, but I certainly hope not. In fact, if anything, I'm hoping that this hurricane and tropical storm season stays as quiet as it has been. It likely will not, but I just don't. I mean, I do not want to see any kind of major hurricane. Yeah, ooh, a major hurricane. Oh, that's going to be so interesting. And yeah, I admit 20, 30, 40 years ago, I was in that category. But you know what? I've had it. I've had it with power outages, long-term power outages. I've had it with watching my local and national news every night and seeing people put out of their homes, people who don't have homes anymore, people who have been lost at sea by storm surges because they didn't have enough sense to get away from the coast. They all went down to the coast to watch the big waves due to the hurricane. I don't want to see that. I just do not want to see that. And I hope that it remains just as quiet now for the balance of this hurricane season as it has been. As I said, Joe, I don't know about you, but I've had it.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Back home, the Weather Prediction Center, I think back to last Thursday when they had 2 to 3 inch rainfalls all over the place. in New England and Long Island and back to New York City and even into New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. Look at this. I mean, they've got uh, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter, maybe for eastern Massachusetts. You pointed out the severity of the drought there. But the half-inch line cuts across western Connecticut and Long Island. If something develops offshore, maybe they're thinking some of that moisture gets thrown back westward to an extent. But much of upstate New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all in 1/10 of an inch or less. Virginia on southward through the Gulf states could be a busier week later this week, especially with some inch and a half to 2, 3 pockets of 2 and 3 inch rainfalls. South Texas with what's going on now. The middle Mississippi Valley extending up into parts of South Dakota, showing some decent rainfalls, and we continue to see big rains in the Southwest. The monsoons have been virtually nonstop. They started early in June and they continue. It's been almost practically 2 months where we've seen this, and I'm just going to bring up the watches and warnings on the Weather Service map here, and we've seen flash flood watches up in the Southwest for a long time now, and they continue to have flash flood watches up through much of Arizona, parts of southernmost California, southern Nevada, into Utah, and up into parts of Wyoming. So the heavy rains there are going to continue. Meanwhile, let's look at what's happening here in the east, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to yesterday, and I'm going to show the upper air from yesterday and show the upper air from last night, and you can see the difference. So this is the 12Z run of the GFS yesterday. Hang on, let me bring that up. And here's your upper trough. This is for Monday. Now, notice a couple of things here. It's very broad. But you do have, if you notice the lines here, the height lines are spread out across on the east side, and they're tighter in the Ohio Valley. So there's a short wave here that's digging southeastward. Whenever you see stronger winds on the west side of a trough versus the east side of the trough, the short wave is actually digging southeastward. And that is a sign of strength. And this is what it did yesterday, where it dug that short wave around. You see a little cutoff low appears there in western New York Monday morning, and then the whole trough just cuts off, and then you get this upper low. It went crazy, forming this upper low off the New Jersey coast south of Long Island yesterday for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and you can see there's a wrapped up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contour cutoff low, probably centered somewhere near Poughkeepsie come Wednesday night. All right,
Poughkeepsie.
Right, Poughkeepsie. So you might say, okay, Joe, well, what does that all mean, down at the surface? Well, let's take a look. We're going to take a look at the 12Z from yesterday at the surface, and you'll see it here. The surface low, it almost looks like a wintertime situation in a sense. You get a surface low that develops. We get that one low there in South Carolina. Suddenly a low pops up off the North Carolina coast, and you have a 1,007 low east of Virginia, and you see the rain there along the coast. This is Tuesday afternoon, and suddenly that low deepens down to a 997 southeast of Long Island with an incredibly tight pressure gradient. I was looking at the wind forecast. It was forecasting 50 to 60 knot wind gusts in eastern Long Island and in southeastern New England, and even some stronger gusts back to about western Connecticut and New York City. You could have made the argument that, because remember we had a case a couple of years ago of a system that moved off Atlantic City and became a tropical storm very quickly when it did so. I think it did it during the month of August. You never know. This could have had, it didn't have a lot of time, but it could have developed into some sort of subtropical system as it moved up, and this would have brought a significant amount of rain to New England, to upstate New York, to northeastern Pennsylvania, even into northern New Jersey and New York City. It really would have been manageable, and it would have been beneficial, at least as far as the rainfall is concerned. Now, let's let's jump to today and see what the difference is. And this is the old run. I'm going to just center it right. This is where it had that, the low approaching Long Island. This is what the upper air looks like. Now let's go to last night's GFS. It doesn't matter if I use the 0 or the 6Z because they were both about the same. But if you look at the 6Z, you have nothing like what was, some feeble attempt at some sort of low cutting off well east of New Jersey, south of Long Island, but it's nowhere near as vigorous as what was shown yesterday. You still have, even the digging, Joe, it's not like yesterday. The trough looks like it's already on the coast here. The next short wave is not digging as well. The thing I'm picking up on is the fact that maybe the system that's here this morning, and you could pick that it's not really doing very much, is this one. It's kind of right here. Hold on, right there. That we see off the coast with these clouds and these little showers. I think that might be, in a sense, let's call it screwing up the second shortwave trough, maybe not allowing it to dig as much. And you can see it's a little, it's broader than yesterday. And you got this feeble attempt at a cutoff that it really doesn't even do very much. And as a result, you totally have a different looking surface map. And I'll bring that loop up. And I mean, here it is. This is Sunday. And you see these showery rains that are around tomorrow in some places, mostly inland. But, the surface low forms. It's kind of way out there. It just stays out. It moves well southeast of Cape Cod. You get maybe some decent rain for parts of New England get into some decent rain, particularly into northern New England. But it's nothing like what it was. And as I said earlier, I'm sorry not to dominate the conversation for so long, but as I said earlier, I was the last few days, not seeing the model consistency to me is always not a good sign when it comes to seeing storm development, and we're still seeing that model inconsistency. I'm thinking this is going to be more underwhelming than anything else.
Yes, unfortunately, and we certainly could have used all those that beneficial slug of rain that was being forecast earlier on, but as you just pointed out, Joe, with the passage of time, that looks like it's not going to be the story. That looks like now that all that is going to either be very much diminished or may not even touch much of the northeastern United States at all.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Move on to the next potential, whenever that may be.
Well, I got the upper air for we'll look at the long range. Trough is in the east all week long. I mean, here's Wednesday and Thursday. You still got troughing in the east. The one thing we can say out of this fairly safely is that it ain't going to get hot anytime soon again. There's another upper low that drops down into Minnesota next Saturday that just kind of, lays across the Great Lakes and doesn't do much of anything. And after that, I mean, it gets to be a little, I guess it gets to be warm and humid. Now we're, believe it or not, Joe, now we're at August 25th, August 26th here on the maps. I mean, there is a ridge that builds off the southeast coast, so maybe it gets hot again toward the end of the month, if you want to believe it. Maybe that'll be the last stretch of 90-degree weather for the summer coming in toward the end of the month of August. If we wind up looking like this, where it looks like troughing wants to go back into the west and ridging wants to come back into the east, I don't know how real that is, but it wouldn't be a shocker if we.
The pattern to me looks like for the latter part of this month that we should be seeing at least more in the way of showers and maybe even rain here from time to time, as opposed to what we've seen over the last 6 weeks. I mean, that's just how it looks to me. I can't see that this siege or spell of dry weather is just going to continue. But I don't know.
You would think from what we went from to what we've gone to with regards to the upper air would have been enough to create a weather pattern. But this is one of those instances where Uh, okay, so the trough moves into the east and the ridge goes into the west, but it's in the wrong place and in the east. Uh, it's not doing you any good here with the way it's set up.
Leon Probitsky on the chat board writes, Gloria had destructive winds. A very funny story about, well, not funny, but at that time in 1985, September of 85, Newsday had two newspapers. There was New York Newsday, which specialized in news in and around the New York area and the five boroughs, and regular Newsday, which was for Long Island. And I guess the people in the Newsday newsroom were looking at what Gloria was doing to New York. And what Gloria did to New York was, basically some strong gusty winds, some heavy rain, and that was about that. In fact, Ed Koch, I remember on one of the local channels, Ed Koch walking around after Gloria had passed and said, "We scared the hell out of the hurricane. We scared it. There's no problem," because everybody thought, destruction and terrible, and it turned out for New York. And so Newsday, seeing that, published a kind of a generic headline for both the New York edition and the Long Island edition the next day, saying, "The day we almost got it." In other words, suggesting that Gloria came and went and didn't bring very much, except that that was the wrong thing to do, because while New York was on the west side of the storm track, Gloria went right across the central part of Long Island, and those who were on the eastern part of the storm, they were the ones who got destructive winds, and they were the ones who got knocked out of power for days and days and days, and all kinds of terrible things. But, because the newsroom at Newsday was just simply concentrating on what happened in New York, they just, I guess, arbitrarily assumed, oh, it wasn't such a bad storm after all. And then in the following days, when they were getting complaints from their subscribers out east, like, "Hey, what are you talking about? Almost got it. We did get it. It was horrible out here." That's when they had to change course, and that again was, up until then, Joe, you remember, the National Weather Service was still based in New York City, and they never really realized how the craziness and how much different the weather could be out east
Right.
as compared to, let's
Well,
say, Western Long Island and New York City.
and there was no News 12. Well, there was formative. There was a channel on Long Island, but it wasn't. The News 12
Right.
didn't come till 1986. So
Right.
it was after that the people kind of started to realize that, hey, things are a little bit different out to the east.
Right.
As well as in New Jersey, if you were in Northwest Jersey, if you were in the Hudson Valley in the wintertime, especially, there was sort of a lack of coverage in those areas unless it was a big one, as far as storminess was concerned. By the way, if you are not a fan of humidity, you should be happy about this week, because I'm just looking at the dew point map, the dew point loop. Now, this is Sunday afternoon. This is today at 2 o'clock. You notice that a lot of this week, there's still quite a bit of green across the Northeast and in the interior Mid-Atlantic, going right through Friday and into Saturday. In fact, Joe, the dew points from this is Saturday afternoon of this coming week, and there's still a 50 dew point at Newark, come next Saturday afternoon. And you have to really go down into the Carolinas to get dew points in the upper 60s and low 70s, and the 60 dew points don't come back in until a week from today, into parts of the Northeast. Not all the southern areas of the Northeast. New England's still still reasonably comfortable. So,
I'm looking at, yeah, I'm just looking at the extended, the GFSX model output statistics MOS forecast for White Plains. I always look at that because, again, I'm here in the lower Hudson Valley, and you see dew points Monday 56, 57, Tuesday 58, 57, Wednesday 58, 58, Thursday 56, 57, Friday 57. Finally, if this is right, late Friday it goes to 61. Nothing that's too difficult to take. I mean, certainly not like 75 like we had last week. 62, 62 on Saturday, 62, 61 on Sunday. So you're absolutely right. If this forecast, according to the GFS, is right, the dew point temperatures through much of this upcoming week will be very easy to take, and certainly that goes into the temperatures that we had last week, which were very hot. Doesn't look like it's going to be overly hot either. I mean, I'm looking at temperatures upper 70s on Monday and Tuesday, only near 70 on Wednesday, mid 70s Thursday, 81 on Friday, and then finally back to the mid 80s, low to mid 80s next weekend, along with a dew point jump just over the 60-degree mark. So next weekend may be a little muggy and a little warm, but all of this week, I don't foresee flicking on the fans and air conditioners or any need to with the cooler temperatures, compared relatively speaking, and also the low dew points.
We have a harpist on the board, Joe. We have a harpist on the board, Henrietta Borot, claiming this is all being engineered. So I just want to let you know, Henrietta, that Joe and I are on the payroll of HARP. We both get seven-figure salaries. Okay, and just so you know, so thank you for keeping us posted. It's good to know that some people, wink, wink, know what's really going on. Wink, wink. Okay.
And in case you're wondering, people who have no idea what HARP is, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, the world's most capable, high power, high frequency transmitter for study of the ionosphere. So the HARP program is committed to developing a world class site. People, wondering, can HARP heat the atmosphere? Thanks to its frequency agility, the HARP antenna can heat the ionosphere at specific altitudes where the transmission frequency simultaneously and also at the same time matches the two resonances. So there you go.
Yes, Joe. That's the story for publication.
Yes.
Wink, wink. We know what the real story is. Okay. So
Yes.
on that note, okay, and just in case, because the way algorithms work, we're suddenly going to have all these HARP people thinking, oh my God, we have somebody that actually believes it. Okay. They'll be coming here.
So you're trying to excite the atmosphere.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of
and you and I each month get the official, under the table report from HARP.
Oh, clearly.
Every time I look at my report, I always say, what a glowing report this is.
Not half as glowing as the paychecks we get. They're tax-free.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Speaking of exciting, what is more exciting than Mrs. Rayo herself coming on board for a little bit of cooking Briller Jeopardy, which we haven't done in a few weeks because of one thing or another that's been going on. So let us now. Is she walking down the stairs yet? Let me know how long I have to extend this marvelous introduction.
Hey, honey, time to come down. I'm sure she's still on the chat board. If she's not, then I'm going to have to actually use the intercom. Hold on for a second.
Yes, by all means. But
paging Mrs. Rayo. Paging Mrs. Rayo. Come in, Mrs. Rayo.
Right, Ethel to Tilly, over.
Tilly. Yes. Come in, Tilly. Now her voice may sound a little different because she has been battling kind of not a sore throat, but I mean like a clogged nasal passages and whatever. But here she is. Here she comes now.
Yes.
Oh,
we need Joe. You need to get some 1960s Ed Sullivan type introductory music for her as she walks into the room.
All right. Hi.
Hi. Okay, I have to. I'm going to.
Really big show.
Really big show. I'm going to just. I'm going to step away because I want to show you something. Because I know I mentioned this to you last in private, but I don't know. Can you see? You should be able to see it soon. But this is one. I've actually started to eat some of this. This is one of 5 jars of sauerkraut, homemade sauerkraut that I made, which was really easy. Actually, the only hard thing about it was the fact that since I'm always clumsy when it comes to knives, I wound up chopping off the top of one of my fingers when I was trying to chop up the cabbage. But here it is. It's in a Clausen jar that I had saved, and I've had some of it. It's really good. It's better. It's better than any store-bought sauerkraut that I've ever had, I must say.
All right.
And by the way, I wish I had the cabbage to show you because the thing was like the size of a basketball. It must have weighed every bit of at least 15 pounds.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you showed me that picture.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
sent me that.
Very
Okay,
good.
yeah.
All right, so you ready to roll here?
What you need is a mandolin. Do you know what a mandolin is?
Yes, yes. My mother had one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
makes it much easier, faster, and I bet you even a sauerkraut even tastes better when it's
yes,
more finely.
and
Yeah.
and certainly
And plus,
and certainly safer for me.
well, no, I've cut myself on the mandolin too. It's very sharp. You have, and
Oh,
you have a tendency to go fast, because it does work very fast. It's very efficient, but you have to use, like they tell you over and over again in the instructions, you have to use that safety guard towards the end of the piece, so
okay.
you don't
All right. This is
slice off your tip of your finger.
this is getting complicated.
And
Maybe I should just get a food processor and throw the darn cabbage in the food processor.
no, that would be worse. No.
No. All right, so here we go. So get here. Let's roll here. What is a bobo tie? What is a bobo tie? B-O-B-O tie. Okay. Is it a national dish of Germany? So you're German, so you know you can throw that out. Choice out. B, the national dish of Sweden, the national dish of South Africa.
Oh, that sounds like it might be South African.
Yeah, it is a curried meat and fruit dish from South Africa. What country is the leading exporter of mangoes? And I will tell you right now, I am not a fan of mangoes. A, China, B, Russia, C, India.
Uh, hmm, China, I guess.
Now you know what
Right?
I would have guessed China, but the answer is India. India.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a tropical fruit, so India is probably hotter.
Yes. Next one. What was the first food eaten in space? Was it applesauce, bananas, or potatoes?
I have to say applesauce. Didn't they put them in packages and then so you could squeeze, just like the little kids have, the
Uh,
toddlers have
yes,
nowadays?
it is applesauce. That is correct. What vegetable is also called a courgette? A courgette. Courgette. Is it A, zucchini, B, broccoli, or C, squash?
It's either zucchini or squash. Um, um, uh,
Before you answer,
yeah.
what was your first what was the first thing that came into your mind with those choices if it's between zucchini or squash? Which one popped into your mind first?
Zucchini.
I would say that you should go with your first idea.
Yes. I was just looking up zucchini, matter of fact, on Pinterest yesterday because next year I'm going to start growing them in pots, and you can do that
Yeah.
vertically, just like you can with a pepper plant.
I did last year. I grew zucchini in pots, and I was moderately successful. What is
Okay.
the biggest supermarket chain in the United States right now today? Is it
Ooh.
ShopRite, Publix, or Kroger?
Oh, that was not in my list. Okay, ShopRite. Um, Publix. See, I'm not even familiar with Publix. That's probably outside of the New York City, or I should say metropolitan area.
It's a southern.
I was like
It's a
Kroger.
southern chain, and the answer is Kroger. Yes. Now it's funny because when we grew up, if you'd have asked that question for many years, what was the biggest supermarket chain?
A&P.
A&P, the Great Atlantic
A&P.
and Pacific Tea Company. Yes, for many years was
Yeah.
the biggest chain. Numbers. The next one, Black Forest cake. This is not even worth asking you because you got to get this. Black Forest cake came from what country? I won't even give you the choices.
Well, I guess it's Germany. Yeah.
And you are correct. Yes. What was the first,
Yeah.
our final question today? Where was the first Caesar salad invented? The first Caesar salad, was it in Spain, Mexico, or Denmark?
Really?
Yeah,
Spain, Mexico,
or
or Denmark?
Denmark.
I'm just going to say Spain.
No,
That's,
I
I thought it was in California. Somebody came
yeah.
up with the Caesar salad in California.
No, well, I was thinking maybe Italy, but no. The answer is Mexico.
Hmm, okay.
Who knew?
I didn't know.
Who
I
knew?
thought it was something that a chef had made to entertain some folks. That's a story that I had read too, because the kitchen was backed up, so he came out and made salad in front of the patrons of the restaurant, and it was just to stall for time, and he made them a Caesar salad. So I thought that was something that took place in California.
You're supposed to put
Anyway, okay.
in an authentic Caesar salad. You're supposed to put a raw egg in it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people do that, or how
No, they
many
don't do that here.
restaurants do that. They may not. Also, for a while, it was the in thing in California among the hoi polloi in California for pregnant women who wanted to start their deliveries early. Would eat Caesar salad because there was something in romaine lettuce or something in something about Caesar salad and romaine lettuce that caused labor to get underway sooner. Who knows? I mean, that I thought was one of the more ridiculous stories. Yes, very ridiculous. So what's on the menu? What
Okay.
what what are you making today?
Oh, I don't know. We got a host of things that we want to do around the house today, so I don't even have anything that's special planned. So I'll have to open the refrigerator and freezer, see what we got.
By the way, Christinapedia points out that Kroger was formed by a German company back in 1883.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
All right, so go hop to whatever it is you got to do and have a great Sunday.
Okay, you too.
I got some sauce I took out of the freezer that I'm going to make some pasta with today. I'm in the mood for pasta, so that's what I'm having. And maybe some pork chops.
I have a ton of tomatoes, so maybe I should just make some fresh pasta sauce.
Ah, works for me.
Tomatoes.
Works for me. All right,
All right, Joe.
take care. See you soon.
It's lagging, so he doesn't know that we're done.
He doesn't stay in the
Come
room
on,
with you?
no, he doesn't stay in here. No, sometimes he doesn't even pay attention. You kidding me?
Oh, Lord. So now there he is. So it's 12:06. The weather is nice. Let's let everybody go outdoors. I want to go outdoors too because the weather's gorgeous here. So we'll see you tomorrow at 7:30. Does that work for you tomorrow night at 7:30?
It works. It works.
Oh, what was that? Hold on. JJ just barked for some reason.
Uh-oh.
He may have heard maybe some animal. I got to run into town and pick up a few things anyway. So, all right, everybody have a great Sunday. Thanks for the super chat hits that we got today from Leon of Lindenhurst, Leon Probitsky, and from Mr. McGuire, who hit early on at the beginning of the show. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Live long and prosper.